Hello Tech Support, John speaking. How may I help you? Okay, so the network is slow. Okay, and what sort of issues are you experiencing? So a report that you're trying to run is taking a very long time. Okay, and a document you sent to the printer 20 minutes ago still hasn't printed out. Yep, okay, I'll look into that for you. Thanks very much. Thank you. Bye. Users reporting the network is slow is something pretty much every IT professional is going to encounter at some point during their career. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the technical considerations and also some serious business implications to consider as well. And I'm also going to share with you an experience I had some time back with a very large network, which illustrates some of the points that I'm going to talk about in this video perfectly. Now, the first thing to remember, of course, is that most of our users won't be IT professionals and they won't understand the intricacies of networking. So when that report takes a lot longer to run, or they see a swirling cursor, for example, or maybe that print job doesn't come out in a timely fashion, then they're going to make assumptions, and those assumptions can be related to speed and, wait for it, the network is slow. Now, often the network isn't slow, and as IT professionals, we know there are a whole ton of reasons that can cause these sorts of issues. It might simply be that some updates are going on in the background. The PC hardware may be old, or maybe a print job has been incorrectly formatted. But all too often the network can be perceived as slow, and it can become the default thing to blame. Now, as an IT professional, I think it's really important to tackle this perception and stick up for our networks. But in all seriousness, I do believe it's something that can be quite dangerous and quite a negative perception. Before you know it, an organisation that may have invested heavily in its IT infrastructure, and that IT infrastructure is working perfectly fine, is perceived as providing poor IT services that are restricting an employee's ability to do their job and in fact hindering them. This can have costly implications too. Bosses may be thinking that if employees are getting frustrated, they're being hindered from doing their job, which is affecting their productivity, then maybe we need to invest in a new network and a new infrastructure, when in actual fact the network infrastructure is perfectly fine. Now I'm going to share with you an experience I had some time back, which is a perfect example of this kind of thing. Now, in a previous role as a senior network engineer, we'd completed the implementation of a network which involved migrating servers, new switching, some thin client, as well as incorporating some existing equipment and also a managed service. Now, the implementation went very well, and initially the client was very pleased. But some months down the line, we were called to a meeting and the client told us that we're really happy with the implementation, we're really pleased with what you've done for us, but we're receiving complaints from the design department that when they load and save CAD drawings, it's still taking a very long time and they've seen no improvement in the new network. Is the new network that you've supplied fast enough? Do we need to look at upgrading that network? And some ideas were bandied around, such as purchasing newer, faster switches and improving links between buildings, etc. Now, the switches were managed switches, so a colleague and I decided that we'd take a look at some of the switch statistics. And we started off by taking a look at the CAD server ports as well as the CAD workstations in real time, when the CAD drawings were both loaded and saved to the server. And we found that network peak utilization for those ports was only something like 20%. So the network itself wasn't that busy, but we couldn't be absolutely sure because we didn't have full network visibility. So I proposed to the customer that we bring in a technical partner that we work with, a specialist that had specialized equipment that would be able to perform more detailed network analysis. So I put forward my proposal to the client, and whilst this was an additional expense, I believed it was really important to establish if there really was a problem with the network before investing huge sums of money upgrading switch infrastructure, because both myself and my colleague had monitored the network ports in action and we didn't believe there was a problem with the network. But also by bringing in an independent technical specialist, that specialist would be able to produce a report that would be independent of us and impartial, that could be passed on to the customer. And also, if there was a problem, it would give us a much more detailed view of that problem. And after that, the client decided, yeah, this is a good idea. They agreed, and the network analysis took place. I was on site when the network analysis took place, and initial results confirmed what my colleague and myself had seen. Network usage was fairly low, and the interfaces on the CAD server were peaking at around about 20% when CAD drawings were both loaded and saved. Now, the network analyst guy started to suspect that some sort of bandwidth throttling was taking place within the CAD software itself, and he suggested to the client that they talk to the software vendor. Now, unfortunately, the client didn't have a support contract with the software vendor. So the network analyst guy did a little bit of digging around and cleverly found a parameter within inside a config file that was in fact throttling the bandwidth that the application used to around about 20%. So we made a few adjustments and carried out a few tests by increasing the level of bandwidth that the application was able to use. And we found that this did indeed improve things dramatically. The CAD drawings loaded and saved pretty quickly, almost immediately. It was in fact a win-win situation for everyone. The client was not only happy, but we'd saved them an unnecessary expense of an unnecessary network upgrade. And the design department were able to push for a software support contract. And also the company that I worked for at the time were able to prove that there wasn't an issue with the new network that they'd supplied. Now, the experience I've just shared with you is a perfect example of the dangers of that perception that the network is slow. We saw that the client's employees were dissatisfied because they felt they had a slow network. The client themselves were dissatisfied by a supplier that had implemented the new network, and the client was also considering investing in upgrading the network infrastructure to fix a problem that wasn't actually there. And worse still, had they done that, they would still have found a problem with the bandwidth when they were transferring their CAD drawings back and forth. Now, the perception that the network is slow, in my view, is something we should address as quickly as possible with our users or our clients. And one of the best ways I think that we can do that is to provide those stats, those graphs of what is actually going on under the hood with our network. And also to educate users as well, to give them a basic understanding of what's going on behind the scenes so that they can be reassured that everything is functioning as it should be. Now, I'm going to leave you with one important caveat to this video. We mustn't assume that the network never will be slow. Networks can be slow because of many reasons. They may be incorrectly configured, old hardware, and numerous other issues. But the important thing to remember is, before jumping to conclusions and making assumptions, we need to measure, we need to look at the stats, we need to carry out some analysis and make sure that we really understand what's going on first before jumping to conclusions and assuming that that network is slow. Well, that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting. I'm also interested to hear from you if you've had any experiences with the network is slow, and if you have, drop a comment below and tell me all about it. Also, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to the IT Taster channel already, remember to hit subscribe, give the video a like too, and I'm also around on social media, and I'll leave the links below in the description. So as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.